Hello, friends.
Hola amigos,
How are you?
¿cómo están?
I'm so happy
Estoy feliz
to be with you.
a estar contigo.
Are you hungry
¿Tienen hambre?
to sing and play?
A cantar y jugar,
'Cause on our menu
porque en el menú
is Spanish today. Everybody sing.
Eat your Spanish, eat your Spanish, eat your Spanish with us today.
Did you say spinach? No, I said Spanish. Okay.
Eat your Spanish with us today. Eat your Spanish!
With Evan.
and Vanessa. Hola amigos, me llamo Vanessa.
Y me llamo Evan. ¿Cómo estás?
We hope you all are doing muy bien. For today's episode, we thought we would do something a little different. Today, we're going to start a series in our podcast called Spanish Storytime. We've read stories in the past before, like in our Sleep Your Spanish episode, but that was mixed in with lots of other things like Spanish songs and games. These new Spanish Storytime episodes will be dedicated entirely to reading a story. So Evan will read a sentence or two in English, and then I'll repeat it back in Espanol.
For our very first Spanish Storytime series, we're happy to share with you all the classic children's book, The Tale of Peter Rabbit, written by Beatrix Potter in the year 1893.
Evan and I have gently edited the story just a tiny bit to remove a few details that we thought might be a little too scary for our little one Milo. We never changed any of the words, we simply just removed a couple sentences, so now everyone of all ages can enjoy the story.
The story is a little long, so what we're going to do is split it up into two separate episodes. So without further ado, estamos muy felices to share with you part uno of The Tale of Peter Rabbit. The Tale of Peter Rabbit, written and illustrated by Beatrix Potter.
El cuento del conejito Pedro, escrito e ilustrado por Beatrix Potter.
Once upon a time, there were 4 little rabbits, and their names were Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. They lived with their mother in a sandbank underneath the root of a very big fir tree.
Había una vez 4 conejitos que se llamaban Flopsy, Mopsy, Cola de Algodón y Pedro. Vivían con su madre en una madriguera de arena debajo de la raíz de un abeto muy grande.
Now, my dears, said old Mrs. Rabbit one morning, you may go into the fields or down the lane, but don't go into Mr. McGregor's garden. Your father had an accident there.
Bueno, mis amores, dijo la señorita Conejo una mañana. Pueden ir a los prados o al sendero, pero no entran al jardín del señor McGregor. Su padre tuvo un accidente allí.
Now run along and don't get into mischief. I'm going out.
Bueno, que vayan a jugar y no hagan travesuras. Ya me voy.
Then old Mrs. Rabbit took a basket and her umbrella and went through the woods to the baker's. She bought a loaf of brown bread and 5 currant buns.
Entonces la señorita Conejo cogió una canasta y su paraguas y atravesó el bosque hasta la panadería. Compró una hogaza de pan integral y 5 pancitos de pasas.
Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail went down the lane to gather blackberries, but Peter, who was feeling very mischievous, ran straight away to Mr. McGregor's garden and squeezed right under the gate.
Flopsy, Mopsy y Cola de Algodón fueron por el sendero a recoger moras, pero Pedro, que se sentía muy travieso, corrió directamente al jardín del señor McGregor y se metió debajo de la puerta.
First he ate some lettuces and some French beans. and then he ate some radishes. And then, feeling rather sick, he went to look for some parsley.
Primero comió lechugas y vainitas, luego unos rábanos y, sintiéndose un poco enfermo, fue a buscar perejil.
But round the end of a cucumber frame, who should he meet but Mr. McGregor? Mr. McGregor was on his hands and knees planting out young cabbages, but he jumped up and ran after Peter, waving a rake and calling out, "Stop, thief!"
Pero al lado de los pepinos, ¿a quién se encontraría sino al señor McGregor? El señor McGregor estaba de rodillas plantando repollos jóvenes, pero se levantó de un salto y persiguió a Pedro, agitando un rastrillo y gritando, ¡Alto, ladrón!
Peter was most dreadfully frightened. He rushed all over the garden, for he had forgotten the way back to the gate.
Completamente asustado, Pedro corrió por todo el jardín, pues había olvidado el camino de regreso a la puerta.
He lost one of his shoes among the cabbages, and the other shoe among the potatoes.
Perdió uno de sus zapatos entre los coles y el otro entre las papas.
After losing his shoes, he ran on 4 legs and went faster, so that I think he might have gotten away altogether if he had not unfortunately run into a gooseberry net and got caught by the large buttons on his jacket. It was a blue jacket with brass buttons, quite new.
Después de perder los zapatos, corrió en 4 patas con mucha prisa, de modo que creo que pudiera escapar por completo si desafortunadamente no cogió los grandes botones de su chaqueta en un red de grosellas. Era una chaqueta azul con botones de latón, completamente nueva.
Peter gave himself up for lost and shed big tears, but his sobs were overheard by some friendly sparrows, who flew to him in great excitement and implored him to exert himself.
Pedro estaba seguro de que estaba perdido y lloró profundamente, pero sus sollozos fueron oídos por unos amables gorriones, quienes volaron hacia él con gran emoción y lo animaron a liberarse de la red.
Mr. McGregor came up with a sieve, which he intended to pop on top of Peter, but Peter wriggled out just in time, leaving his jacket behind him.
El señor McGregor se acercó a Pedro por detrás con un colador que intentó poner encima de él, pero Pedro escapó justo a tiempo, dejando su chaqueta detrás de él.
He rushed into a tool shed and jumped into a can. It would have been a beautiful thing to hide in if it had not had so much water in it.
Corrió rápidamente hacia un cobertizo de herramientas y saltó en una regadera. Sería un escondite maravilloso si no estuviera tan lleno de agua.
Mr. McGregor was quite sure that Peter was somewhere in the tool shed, perhaps hidden underneath a flower pot. He began to turn them over carefully, looking under each.
El señor McGregor estaba seguro de que Pedro estaba en algún lugar del cobertizo de herramientas, tal vez escondido debajo de una maceta. Comenzó a darles vueltas con cuidado, mirando debajo de cada una.
Presently, Peter sneezed. Mr. McGregor was after him in no time. Peter jumped out the window, upsetting 3 plants.
En ese momento, Pedro estornudó y el señor McGregor lo persiguió enseguida. Pedro saltó por la ventana y derribó 3 plantas.
The window was too small for Mr. McGregor, and he was tired of chasing after Peter. He went back to his work.
La ventana era demasiado pequeña para el señor McGregor y él estaba muy cansado de persiguiendo a Pedro. Entonces volvió a su trabajo.
amigos. This is such an exciting story. We're going to pause right here for now and pick up where we left off in our next Storytime episode. I sure am glad Peter got away, though. It's a good thing that conejos are fast hoppers.
Yeah, that's true. Amigos, have you all ever seen a conejo outside? Maybe you've seen one hopping really fast, or even eating some snacks from your jardín, like zanahorias or tomates. We have a little conejito that visits our house in the mornings sometimes. Milo named it Breakfast because it usually shows up right around breakfast time. I guess that means its Spanish name would be Desayuno. That's a pretty cute name.
Oh yeah, that is a cute name. Maybe that little conejito is a friend of Pedro or Peter.
Aw, yeah, maybe. Well, amigos, thanks for listening to part uno of our first ever Spanish story time. We can't wait to pick up where we left off next time. Now there's just one last thing to do together.
Time for the goodbye song. We hope you'll sing along with us.
Adiós, mi buen amigo.
Goodbye, my good friend.
Hasta luego.
See you later. See you later, my good friend. Adios, amigos. Goodbye, friends.
Hasta luego. See you later. Thanks for listening to the Eat Your Spanish podcast. You can support our podcast by visiting patreon.com/eatyourspanish or by subscribing to it and leaving a review on iTunes. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, or on the web at eatyourspanishpodcast.com. Thanks for listening. Adios!